Hi everyone, my name is Om Vaiti and I'm a Principal Program Manager on the Office 365 engineering team, and I lead the development of Service Trust Portal and Compliance Manager.
Hi, I'm Scott Schnall, a Senior Program Manager on the Office 365 Customer Experience team, and I led the development of the Microsoft Information and Customer Guidance in Compliance Manager.
This video is designed to help you understand more about compliance with data protection standards and regulations, and to help you gain more knowledge about regulatory compliance. We will also talk about shared responsibility model on the cloud, the concept of control frameworks, and the compliance activities from regulations to audit.
I'd like to start by explaining why we have regulations. At their most basic level, regulations are the details that explain how people, businesses, or government organizations should follow the law. Whereas laws are effectively a collection of system of rules, regulations basically ensure that a law or legislation is put into effect and the details of how it's put into effect. Many examples of this are found in everyday life. For instance, in the US, Congress might pass a law that makes it illegal to exceed the speed limit. But that law by itself doesn't tell you how fast you can drive down your own street. So you don't have the details that you need to follow the law. To make laws applicable to real life, the U.S. Congress authorizes agencies to make regulations, and it is the Federal Highway Administration under the U.S. Department of Transportation that regulates highway safety. They create all sorts of regulations, such as how fast or how slow you can drive in certain areas and what speed limit signage should look like, all with the goal of protecting people.
That's a great explanation, Scott. And to extend it, data protection regulations and standards effectively provide guidance on how to protect organizational and personal data. Through different certification processes, Microsoft Cloud compliance with the regulations can be demonstrated to organizations to build their trust in our cloud and to help them to adopt and use our cloud technology. Obtaining compliance certifications is one of the best ways to prove to organizations that we understand and have implemented controls and measures that are needed to protect their data. The certification process also makes cloud service providers like us more motivated to design better controls and the features.
That's right, Om. In fact, we talk with regulators all around the world to create better technology and services that continuously increase the bar for data protection. We talk to regulators and auditors, we ask for feedback on the solutions we provide, and we make continuous improvements based on their feedback.
That's right. We have explained why compliance with the data protection standards and regulations is important. Now, we would also like to talk about compliance in a context of the cloud and the shared responsibility model. So when organizations leverage only on-premises IT infrastructure, they have a complete responsibility to protect the data and to implement the controls necessary to be compliant with applicable regulatory standards. Now, on the other hand, organizations that are using cloud services lessen their burden in most cases considerably, because the cloud represents a shared responsibility model between the organization and the cloud service provider. As a cloud service provider, Microsoft provides the physical infrastructure, networking, application platform, as well as SaaS service controls. So for example, organizations don't need to spend resources building their own data center and setting up physical access controls. Scott, what are some of the other examples of the shared responsibility model reducing the customer's burden?
A great example would be the NIST 853 standard. In the latest iteration, there's 975 controls in that standard, but 78% of those controls are Microsoft's responsibility and only 22% are the customer's responsibility. But even more compelling is that Microsoft not only takes care of its own responsibilities, but we also provide organizations with tools and features to help them cover theirs. For example, in Office 365, we use Lockbox to restrict and control access to the production environment and to customer data, but we also provide features like Customer Lockbox to enable the customer to be a part of the necessary chain of approval required for elevated access. Another example is encryption. We provide baseline industry standard encryption by default for data in transit and at rest. And we also provide features like Azure Information Protection and Office 365 Customer Key that provide organizations with additional levels of control. Now, my last example is around personnel control, where the responsibility is equally shared. We train our employees, of course, to protect customer data and to report suspected security incidents, but organizations need to do the same for their employees as well.
Thanks, Scott, for these examples of the shared responsibility model at work in Microsoft's cloud services. Next, we would like to share with you how Microsoft is able to comply with a broad range of regulations and standards. And Microsoft Cloud is one of the leading cloud to make sure we are compliant with the regulations that matter to you as an organization, matter to your region, and matter to your industry. Now you can see the control IDs 1, 3, and 4 help meet the requirements of regulations A, while control IDs 2, 3, 4, and 5 help to meet the requirements of regulations B. Control IDs 3 and 4 are common controls that, when implemented by Microsoft, enables us to meet the requirements for both regulations A and B. And that's how, by having a common control framework, we are managing efficiently and effectively the regulations across the globe, across the industries. And this is what the benefit that we would like to share with you.
Yeah, and another example can be found between NIST 853 and the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. There are articles in the GDPR related to data protection that map directly to controls in NIST 853. And for these requirements, we just need to define and implement the necessary controls one time, and it will enable us to meet both GDPR and NIST 853 requirements.
That's right. Over the years, we have made huge investments in making sure that we are mapping various controls across the global regulations. So I'm proud to say that Office 365 has more than 1100 controls that are mapped across several standards and regulations, and that enables us to leverage a single control framework to meet many compliance obligations.
Yeah, and we use the same methodology for other Microsoft Cloud services as well, including Azure, Dynamics 365, Intune, and Windows. You can see the comprehensive certifications we have across regions and industries. We do conduct regular audits, and each of our cloud services continuously works to stay up to date with the evolving compliance landscape. Now, Om, you used to be an auditor, so would you share some of your experiences around the compliance and audit activities?
Sure, Scott. It feels like a long time ago, but yes, I worked as an auditor for many years. The regulations to audit process is most complex, disjointed, and labor-intensive process. It starts with understanding and interpreting the requirements. And those who have gone through a GDPR standard or law, you can understand how difficult it is to take those vague requirements and creating and implementing those requirements. Although there are many compliance management technology solutions out there, they don't help organizations with these upfront processes, and we want to change that. In addition, research shows that globally there are more than 200 updates a day across 750 regulatory bodies, and that makes it very challenging for compliance professionals to stay up to date. Now, even after organizations have defined requirements, they need to define internal controls that meet those requirements and then implement and maintain those controls to demonstrate compliance to internal and external auditors. Now, the challenging part is that while compliance and privacy professionals understand the requirements, they often don't know what technology solutions can help them to meet these requirements. Similarly, IT professional understands technology and solutions like data loss prevention or Azure information protection, but they don't know how to implement these solutions and features to satisfy the regulatory requirements or data protection requirements. This can make compliance process very challenging. Now, last but not least, organizations spend a lot of time in collecting the evidence and managing that evidence and packaging that evidence to demonstrate effectiveness of their controls. This task is very manual and time-consuming. All these challenges, along with the direct feedback that we have received from auditors, regulators, and customers like you, have led us to develop tools for organizations that enable them to reduce cost by streamlining the compliance activity management process and improve their compliance posture.
We'll talk about those tools in the next 2 sessions. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.